Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I am your host, Al Richards, and today we've got a really awesome show for you and a really great topic. But before we get started and before I introduce my guest, I would just like to say thank you to Emergo Academy. Dave and Susan Kenny, they're actually my coaches, and they are just really two amazing individuals, two people who I highly recommend and look up to and love dearly. So, Emergo Academy, it's just not another program, it's a life changing brain first approach to recovery. That's what got me interested in taking their program because it is about the brain first approach, which a lot of us that know that who are in recovery or suffer from addiction or have a loved one that suffers from addiction, a lot of things get in our head, and a lot of times that's where addiction starts. It's something that's inside of us that we're just not wanting to feel. These guys help with that. So, like I said, I've personally taken the training and it's transformed my life. And guys, you've heard me say this before on other shows. With what I went through in 2025, seriously, I get emotional even sometimes thinking about it. If it wasn't for the training that I took and learning how to sit with my emotions and figure things out on my own and figure out why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling, I don't know if I would have made it as far as I have. So again, guys, check them out. Even if you're not interested in becoming a international certified crisis and recovery coach and you're just interested in taking their program to change your life, because I this is a big word for me to use. I guarantee you it will change your life to take their training. Check them out. Emergo Academy. That's EMERGO Academy.com. I am honored to introduce our guest today, Brekelle. And is it Bott, right? Is that how you say the last name?
Yeah.
Brekelle Bott. And I want to say thank you, Todd Sylvester at Wasatch Recovery, for introducing us. I saw Brekelle on Todd's show, and I reached out to Todd and I said, could you do an introduction? I would love to have this young lady come on the show and share her story because I heard a little bit of the interview with Todd. And today we're going to be talking about the journey towards healing. So, Raquel, thank you so much for taking time out of your morning to be with me today. I really do appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be here and talking with you.
Uh, Thank you. You know, you and I had a phone conversation back in January, and we just kind of talked a little bit, and we shared each other's life and our stories. And really, I'm just really, gosh, what I'm searching for the word. I just really look up to you. I'm just going to put it that way, because I like to put it this way: life throws shitballs at us all the time. And sometimes it hits us square in the face and it's nasty and it's gross. And a lot of times we don't know what to do. And at such a young age, to be able to figure things out and go, you know what? This is not where my life's going to go. My life's better than this. I'm better than this. And this is the direction that I want to go. And I look up to people like that, whether they're younger or older, because my version of it is we can learn from everyone. It doesn't matter what their age is. I mean, I learn from my grandkids and they're 14, 11, and 9, and I learn from them. So yeah, I just look up to you. And before we started recording, we talked about that title, The Journey Towards Healing, because of really what both of us have gone through with the loss and grief. And grief is a freaking roller coaster ride, isn't it?
Oh, yes, and it never ends. It never ends. How beautiful is that? I picture grief as beautiful now, just because what a blessing it is to love somebody so much or love the idea of something so much that you get to grieve.
Yeah, and I'm writing that down that you said how beautiful is that, because really it is, that you do have that love for one individual. You know, I've heard other people say I don't think I'll ever heal from it, and I don't think we ever do, right? It's something that we will have with us the rest of our life. I think the only thing that changes, not for everyone, but for a lot of us, is that we just learn how to cope with it on a daily basis because really it affects us daily.
It does. Yes, and it's a beautiful coexistence of heartbreak and like gratitude. Like I got to know somebody or I got to experience something, and I love them so much that I get to miss them every day.
Yeah. So, what was it so our listeners understand? I mean, what is that story of grief? And I know it wasn't a pretty sight for you at first, right? Because grief, it takes us down a dark hole. I would
Yeah.
say almost all of us.
Yes. So when I was 18, I lost my dad to COVID. He passed away from COVID in November of 2021. And that took me down a very, very dark, dark place. I I watched him die. I called time of death on him. I It was traumatizing. It was awful. And so after that, I went down the road of addiction and numbed myself for a couple years at least. And that's when that was like my first experience of actual grief, like real authentic grief. I've I've lost people before, but I've never felt it in a way where I didn't think that I was going to make it. And so after that, I I got clean, and that's when I went to Wasatch Recovery and met Todd, and that man single-handedly saved my life. I was so angry and broken when I met him, and he like transformed the way that I thought, like not even in like the addiction world. I don't even like I didn't want to learn just how to stop drinking. I wanted to learn how to be the best person I can be. I wanted to change my whole outlook on life. And that's when Todd told me, do you know what they do in other countries when somebody passes away? They do a celebration of life. They they believe that people should be celebrated, not mourned. Like there's a time and a place to mourn people, but overall they should be celebrated because of the life that they lived. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like that is crazy. Like I never knew that. Like I've heard of celebrations of life, but they were right after funerals and everyone was still sad and everyone was drinking. And so that's kind of where my grief started. I Grief is so interesting because it goes over so many different topics. You can grieve somebody who has passed. You can grieve the idea of somebody or something. You can grieve an experience. You can grieve somebody who's still on earth. It's it's so wide of a topic that I've experienced all of them. So like I got clean at 20 years old. So I when I first got clean, I had to grieve the idea of never being able to go out to a bar and drink like a normal person in their 20s, normal. And I I sat down with Todd a lot and I was just like how how do I make friends? How do I go and do these things that everybody else gets to do without doing exactly what they get to do? I've grieved the idea of people. So, and then just this last year in 2025, I gave my baby for adoption. So now I get to grieve somebody who is still on earth. I still get to see him all the time, but it's almost like it's not the idea of him because I still get to see him and I get to live him. It's it's a baby that I had that I don't get every day. I'm not his mom. I'm his birth mother, but I'm his mom. So it's such a wide topic. I love talking about every single aspect of it though because I feel like when you think of grief, you think only of the idea of somebody who has passed.
Yeah.
It's such a wide topic.
It is very huge. And thank you for sharing that. It takes a lot of vulnerability to open up and share what you just shared. And you are 100% right. At least my version of it is I have to agree with you, Raquel, because you know, a lot of people don't realize, like you just said, that we think grief is when we lose a loved one. And it's such a roller coaster because, I lost my wife last April, and literally it was 4 weeks after I lost my leg. And I'm grieving the loss of my leg. Now I'm grieving the loss of her. And when she was here, I was grieving her battle that she was battling with. And also, I was still even grieving with me because of not really knowing what to do and how to handle things. So, like you said, the grief affects us in so many ways. Excuse me. And man, grief can eat at our emotions so hard. I mean, it takes us down a dark hole, just like the addiction does, right? It takes us down a dark hole, and we don't even realize we're slipping that deep until all of a sudden one day we wake up and we're just like, why is my life so freaking miserable? Why does it seem like I can't even live anymore?
Yeah.
And it takes that time for us to sit in our emotions. I like to say that, and I believe you even said it, if I remember right, in a different way, on your bio. We find our greatest light in our darkness.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
we have to sit in some darkness, right? And as long as we choose not to stay there, but we look for the message and we look for the lesson, when we find it, oh my gosh, our life changes. And I'm guessing on this, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing Todd helped you find that light.
That's like the understatement of the year. That man single-handedly saved my life, changed my life in every way. I owe everything to him. He sat with me. I even not just even when I was in residential treatment. He has seen me like right after I had my baby in September. I saw him every single week, 6 days postpartum to 4 months postpartum. Like even when I was in like aftercare, he saw me every week just because he's the person. If you show that you want the help, if you're going to put in the work, he will be there for you. And he showed up for me because I showed up for me. And just his outlook on life. I remember like sitting down with him in our first couple sessions, and I was just like, I want to be where this man is. Like he had to have done something to get to where he is. I want to be there. So I had to wring out my sponge of everything that I've known in the past and just like soak every ounce of knowledge that he gave me. And just hearing how he talked about grief, he was the kind of the one who told me like you're grieving an experience that you never got to have, or you're grieving an experience, or you're grieving a person that you thought was going to be one way and ended up being another, like my baby's birth dad. And he really taught me how to stop being angry at my dad because I was so angry at him.
Mm.
That's, like I said, an understatement. I was so broken. But you'll hear, at least I heard a lot, like you have to hit rock bottom in addiction to be able to get out of it. I don't necessarily think that that's always 100% true. Um, but I wasn't at a rock bottom in addiction, but I was at a rock bottom with like my soul. My soul could not handle any more hurting. And so I throughout my life I've been through hard things, and it seems like I grieved that, or I went through that hard thing, got over it, and then I did like a period of healing, and where I was like super happy, was with, had like a lot of self time, was with my family, and then kind of like got back out of it eventually. Um, and then went back down that dark hole again. And it took what, like 4 times of that pattern to just finally be like, nobody's coming to save me. Nobody's coming to save me. Like, I have to pick myself up. How can I expect other people to be there for me if I'm not going to show up for me? Or how do I show up for these people who want to show up for me? So it's kind of like I 100% think that everybody should feel all of the sad, the angry feelings, but don't stay there too long. because that's when, like, it's a very slippery slope of being able to accept and acknowledge that you're feeling these things in a healthy way. Once you stay there a little too long, it gets comfortable. It gets,
Yes.
and that turns into a habit or a pattern, and very hard to get out of. But if we don't accept and acknowledge that you're feeling these things, that becomes avoidance. So it's a very, you have to balance.
Yeah. Most definitely you have to balance, and society has us thinking the the bad part of it, right? The society has us is, oh, you're feeling sad, just snap out of it. Oh, you're grieving. Oh, come on. It's okay, right? Oh, you're depressed. What the hell's wrong with you? Just be happy. Why can't you
What
just smile every day,
what do you
right?
have about?
Yeah, yeah. And that's how society has formed and shaped us. And I feel like that's why, even especially with men, I really do feel that's why so many men are taking their lives. I mean, suicide rate has almost doubled in the last 10 years, I think, or 15 years, with men ages 18 to 55 or 58. And it's because, you know, we're brought up in a way that you're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to show your feelings. You're supposed to be tough. You're supposed to handle things. You're supposed to suppress your emotions and not show them, because if you do, you're weak. And that's all bullshit. It's all bullshit, because that's where we find our strength.
Yeah,
Like you just said, right? Our strength comes from these moments. God gave us all these emotions for a reason. I mean, I think we're the only creature on this planet that gets the blessing of being able to experience all these emotions that we have. And you nailed it, right? The trick is not to stay there, not to get stuck there. I just posted a short little video on my social media this week, about emotions. I used to be told all the time that if you cry, don't you dare cry, or I'll give you something to cry about.
yeah,
Right. And it's like, well, you don't want me to cry, but you're going to give me something to cry about. This doesn't make sense to me.
right.
Or it's just how they were raised also, right? I'm not putting any blame or pointing any finger on them or at them, but it took me a long time in my life. I mean, you got it at such an early age. And again, that's why I look up to you, because it took me till I was all the way into my 50s, late 50s, before I realized, my gosh, I'm not accepting these emotions and sitting and looking at what's the message. Me and a buddy like to say all the time, what's the message in the mirror? When we're struggling, sometimes he and I call each other and we say that to one another quite a bit. What's the message in the mirror? Look in the mirror. There's a message there, right? Figure it out. And you said something about hitting rock bottom. You know, my version of it is, I think there's a rock bottom after the rock bottom after the rock bottom after the rock bottom. It's when do you decide to drop the damn shovel, is what it is, right?
100%.
Because yeah, because as soon as you think you hit your lowest spot, if you stay where you're at, like what you just said, you'll find yourself even lower than what you was before.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. It really just is like when you decide to get clean for you. I have never once seen, this is just my experience. I've never once seen somebody get clean for something or somebody else and stay clean. Not once have I seen that. And I worked at Wasatch Recovery for a year. So I was there as a client, saw all of my housemates, and then I saw all these clients. You really, like, I don't care. I said this in Todd's podcast. I don't care what gets you into treatment, but what keeps you sober is going to be you at the end of the day, every day.
Hmm.
And like, because what got me into treatment was my niece. I wanted to be there for her. I wanted to show up for her. I wanted her to know who I was. But after a couple days, I was just like, I feel so much better. Like, just physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, I feel lighter. And that's all it takes is a couple days of just surrendering to the process of healing and accepting the help. Being like, going back to the vulnerability, I think that vulnerability is the most courageous thing that we can do. Emotional intelligence is something that has to be taught. Like, you have to be able to be open to accept learning emotional intelligence. It changed my life. And like I said, Todd is the one who taught me that. I love that man so much. I owe him everything.
Well, owe yourself a lot too, right? Because you was there with him and you listened to what he had to share with you. And because you could have done it the other way, right? You could have resented him for what he was doing to work with you, and it could have went a whole different direction. Instead, he I'm pretty sure knowing Todd, he's got that lovable, soft, silky hand touch, where he gets you to feel comfortable in a way to where you do want to listen to what he has to say. And going back to the vulnerability of what you just said, that is so huge, because when you can finally accept and admit and be vulnerable where things are at, and just really quick, when I first started doing my public speaking, I would share a lot about my wife's story, right? The journey and all that other stuff. And I wasn't talking about my stuff. And somebody finally told me one day, he's like, you want to be a better speaker, start telling your effing story instead of her effing story. And it really opened my eyes. And one day, I mean, God puts this chess pieces so perfectly into place that when I was doing my podcast, when I had my studio, my guest didn't show. And I used to bring a guest co-host to come in. And the guest co-host worked with this person who told me what I just mentioned. And I took the advice and I asked my co-host to host the show that day, and I was the guest of my own show. And I
Well,
opened up for the very first time about my 8-year weekend cocaine and alcohol usage and hiding it for, the 3 years I dated my wife. She didn't even know I was snorting cocaine. We drank together, but she didn't know I was doing the other stuff. And man, when I finally opened up, Brekelle, and I'm sure this, and again, I'm just assuming, but I'm pretty sure you felt the same way, that when we open up and become vulnerable, we just become lighter. It's like we're carrying around a backpack full of freaking rocks every day, and we just learn how to deal with it, right? But then when we learn how to start pulling those rocks out of that backpack, man, life just starts getting lighter, and light seems to shine in areas that we never saw before.
yeah, for sure. I agree with that
Is your
100%.
dog coming to be on the show too?
Yes.
It's okay. Yeah, awesome. He's like,
He,
I want to be a part of this.
I know he has FOMO so bad, huh?
I love it.
Um, yeah, just I I remember the feeling of the first time that I talked about stuff that I've never said out loud in treatment. And I was just like, do you I'm sure that you know this exact feeling. Once you get that out and you like are vulnerable and you open up about everything for the first time, you get exhausted. It's exhausting in the best way though, because it's just like when you after you go on a long hike and you take off that backpack, like just it's refreshing.
Mhm.
It's refreshing. And I told myself that I would never talk about these things that I talked about for the first time a couple years ago. And when I did, I was expecting rejection, and I was just expecting nobody to believe me, all these negative things. I had all these negative overall feelings about like if I talk about this is what's going to happen. Not one person like was like that. I was filled with so much love. And I I've actually learned something because not everybody has our same experiences with life experiences. Nobody has experienced the exact same things. But also not a lot of people have been to treatment. Not a lot of people have been to coaching and therapy and all these things. So when I meet people who struggle with their vulnerability or struggle with just talking about themselves, period, I always say like let me talk about some stuff about me because I've found that if you're vulnerable with other people, they're going to be vulnerable with you. They believe that like you're a safe space. And that's the kind of place that I want to be for people. I can't tell you how many times I've had people tell me like I have never talked to somebody like this ever, or I've never opened up about these things. I've never talked about these things, but like I don't know why. I just feel comfortable talking about it, and it's you have to be vulnerable to get vulnerable back.
Yeah. You know, and I think once you do too, you have a certain aura that goes around you that also people can feel and see,
Yes.
right? To be able to do that. And something that you said that again, you're spot on, Brekelle. And I'm not saying it just because you're my guest and I'm agreeing with you, because I do agree with what you said about when you are vulnerable, you know, you are afraid of what other individuals are going to think, right? You're already feeling shameful and you're thinking, oh, great, I'm going to end up feeling more because people are going to start pointing their fingers. And I was speaking to a lady friend of mine probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and she was really going through some hard stuff. And she's like, I really don't know what to do. And I mentioned it to her. I says, you know, you have this carrot over your head. And once you open up and you cut that string that's holding that carrot, no one can hold it over your head ever again because you are the one who exposed it instead of somebody from the outside. And she took the advice and she ended up doing a video. She actually went out on a hike and did a video and opened up and said, this is what's happening in my life. This is what I've done. This is what's happening. And this is what I've had people say to me. And she posted it. And the outpouring of love and empathy that that beautiful young lady received was beyond her surprise, right? And it was because she shared it. She opened up. She shared a part of her that she was ashamed of. But again, Bill Parcells, who used to be an NFL football coach, he coached the Giants and a lot of different other teams, and he said once during one of the Super Bowl wins, he told his team, he says, "No one can ever tell you the rest of your life that you couldn't do it." And when we get vulnerable, that's exactly what happens with us, right? No
Mhm.
one the rest of our life can hold that damn carrot over our head.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And like you, once you're vulnerable like that, it's almost like a different, like you can stand taller. Everybody has some sort of shame for something that's happened to them, something that they've done. Everybody has that. So it's just why would we judge somebody if we like how I view it? If somebody's shameful about something, I just think they did the best they could with what they knew.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's exactly what I did. Who am I to judge when I wasn't in their shoes? And I promise, like, I never shared my pregnancy. This is a great example. I never shared my pregnancy online, or the only people who knew of my pregnancy was Wasatch Recovery and my family and my baby's family. And because I was so shameful of what people would say, I wouldn't let anybody be there for me besides Todd and my friend Dalton and my mom and my best friend and her family. I was so shameful because who am I to not be able to keep my baby? That was a real thought that I had. Like, I am an awful person. Like, why was I not ready to do this? Why was I not in a position to do this alone? And once I did share my pregnancy, once I came out and talked about it, I got an overwhelming amount of support. Overwhelming. Like, I was going through reading comments and having people reach out to me all day, every day for a long time. I still do. And I just, and now like I've reached a community of like parents trying to adopt, or I've had women come to me and say, I don't know what to do. I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do. It's, you never know who you're going to help with your story. How I see it, everybody on this earth has helped another human being without even realizing it. If that's not enough to stay and like get through and push through, get up, because if you can't do it for yourself right now, do it for somebody else. And I promise you, that self-love and that healing for you will come with that. I promise.
Yeah.
Because I had to borrow, like I said this again in Todd's podcast, I had to borrow so much love until I found it for myself. But it does come with time, with work. It doesn't just come naturally. You do have to put in the work. You have to get up and do something for you every day.
And isn't the payback amazing?
Oh
Right.
my God.
You don't get charged interest on something like this, right? The payback is so freaking amazing. Here I got the God bumps over here on this side again, and that's what I love about another thing about life, right? And I'd like to go into faith a little bit because you mentioned faith, in your bio, but to be able to know that life isn't like a game of baseball where you get three strikes and you're out. We are so blessed that we have a God who I call my higher power. It doesn't matter what anybody else calls it, that whatever works for them, right? That we have chance after chance after chance after chance after chance. And I also know from my own experience, if we don't learn the lesson, he gives it to us again and again and again and again and again until we learn the lesson. Then once we do, be ready because there's another lesson that's coming, right? But it's all these chances that we've been giving that we are given, and it's amazing, to be able to be given that, to have an opportunity to make a difference in our life. However, we're making a difference in someone else's life. I mean,
Right.
I saw the show, about half of it. I got through about half of it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to reach out to Todd and see if we can connect because I'd love to have this lady on my show, to share a message too, because we affect one person. And let's say you even know the person that you change, right? That they hear something and it goes, oh my gosh, they get that aha moment. That ripple effect goes so much further than what we see. If we're out 100 miles, 1,000 miles out in the ocean and an earthquake happens out of the ocean, and we might see a little teeny wave go across the ocean, that's just the beginning. But by the time it hits the shore, the damn thing's huge.
Right.
And that's what happens with individuals like yourself and so many of my other guests that come on the show and be vulnerable and open up. Man, the lives that they change is just so amazing. I mean, again, it's cool to be a podcast host and go somewhere and just be able to have someone come up and go, "Oh my gosh, I watched this show with so and so, and it just really hit home with me, and it really got me thinking." That person did it, right? They're thanking me, and it's like, no, don't thank me, thank them, right? Because you heard their message. I'm just given the platform here to hear their message. They changed your life, right? Or they flipped a light switch on that you didn't even know that was there during all this. And again, I'm just kind of guessing just because of who I know who Todd is. But the faith, I would think some faith really had to drop in on you. It's probably something that you didn't ever think that you could dig out and find, especially to have faith in another individual to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Faith in yourself, most of all, knowing that you could get through this. And then, of course, faith that there is something greater than us, a higher power, because I like to say this all the time. We cannot do this alone at all.
No, this life is not meant to go through alone.
Mm.
Whether that is with whoever is your higher power or your person here on this earth. But finding my faith again in all of those aspects came at different times. And it was so, I, fun isn't the right word, but it was so, it took a lot of work to find it in each one of those different like aspects of my life. Being able to like find my spirituality again, I lost that for a long time. Like I was able, when I found that, it happened at Wasatch. Wasatch is like the most beautiful treatment center, by the way. I don't know if you've been there. You went on Todd's podcast.
Well, I've been on there, and plus my wife went there too, so she worked
Yes,
hard as
yes.
well. And I know Mark Richards pretty well, so yeah, I've sat down and broke bread with Mark, and yes, great people there.
Oh my gosh, they're amazing. The location of Wasatch too is beautiful. You're up in the mountains, and like that's where like I find like I believe that my God is with me everywhere I go, but that's the in the mountains and in nature is kind of where I feel them the most. That's where like I spiritually feel my dad the most as well. And I had so many breakthroughs there that I was just like, there's no way that like this is like all just not happening for me, you know? Todd says like everything happens for you, not to you. And that was, I say that to myself every single day. But being able to actually like fill the, because in my opinion, I think the veil is so thin. I think the veil is so thin. And I have had a few experiences where how could I not believe that? That's just personal with me. But I have felt my dad's, when you are doing drugs or you're drinking alcohol the way that I was, you don't feel anything. You can barely even have a complete thought. So being able to get clean and feel emotion and to be able to feel a spirit that I've so badly been craving to feel and the comfort of that was amazing. The finding the faith in myself, like being tested with not drinking, being tested in hard situations. Like I thought that once I got clean, that it was just going to be all sunshines and rainbows. Like, okay, I did the hard thing in life. I did it. And now everything's going to be great. That's not, I feel like that's the story that a lot of people think when they go into treatment or once they get sober and or clean. And when I had my pregnancy, I had a miscarriage in 2024, the same year that I got sober. I was like 5 months clean. That should have taken me out. Realistically, that would have taken a lot of people out. I didn't want to be a part of the statistic of going back out. I wanted to be a one and done. I I knew that I could do it. Like I got this far. If I was going to go back, I would have already. Number one, and like I didn't want to fit into the statistic of you make it this far or you go back to treatment this many times. I fell in love with the feeling, the physical feeling, the emotional feeling, the spiritual feeling of being clean. And I knew, and Todd taught me that what a blessing it is to be able to feel the emotions after numbing them for so long. I wanted to feel something, anything other than hurt, like the death of my father for a long time. And so even like the sadness of a miscarriage, like it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. I I knew that I was going to get through it. It goes back to like resilience. I think resilience and faith and perseverance all meshed together very well. Um, I knew that I was going to be okay. Like I've been through all these hard things and being able to, I learn from some of the greatest people ever. And I gained 10 years of knowledge at Wasatch Recovery in 60 days. And
Mm.
just being able to have the faith in myself, like things are going to be hard. Things are going to be hard, but what a blessing it is to be able to go through that because I know that I'm going to come out of this even stronger than before I got into this situation. No matter what it was, I knew that I was going to be okay, but not just okay. I knew that I was going to be stronger and better when, not when the situation was done, I guess, but once I adapted to that.
Yeah, so well put. And thank you for sharing that. Yeah, because I think I said it. I can't remember if I said it at the beginning of the show or right before we recorded, but we find our greatest strengths in our darkest moments of our life. And again, sometimes it takes us a while. Sometimes we got to bump into the walls looking for that light switch many, many times. And once we do, and we start realizing, I got a friend who coaches and he's the author of the Giant and the Smalls book. And it's an animated book. It's almost like a child's book, but there's 12 journeys that that this small person whose name is Remy goes through. And it's like almost like a 12 step, but it's not a 12 step. It's just kind of in that format, I guess, to make it sound some kind of sensible. But you know, gosh, where was I going to go with this now? But oh, I was talking to him, quite a while ago, and he goes, Al, a lot of people who battle depression don't realize what a gift that is. And it really shocked me when he said that. And I'm like, a gift, a gift. Why is he thinking it's a gift? And then as he went on to explain it, I understood, right? It is a gift because when we can get to a point, hopefully we can get to that point where we can sit with it and start figuring out the lesson behind it and the reasons why it is a gift. It's a gift of strength. And I said this to my wife once, leaving an AA meeting, and this is kind of an example of what I was just touching on. We left, and I said, you know what? I says, you guys in recovery get it. She's like, what do you mean we get it? I says, you guys understand life. You get life. And she's like, I don't understand. I said, the rest of us just go through life. We're just in this 3D world and we're just going with the flow, we're just sheep following sheep is all it is. But I'm like, those who have gone through hell in their life with recovery and they have figured out a way with the help of a higher power and with the help of other individuals, you see life the way life is meant to be seen. And here I was at that time working my ass off reading self-help books and working on myself to become a better individual. And I didn't look at myself as an addict, back then. I really still in a way don't, but in a way I kind of was. It's just however my story is how I look at it. But I learn a lot doing this show. I had a guest ask me one time if I went to therapy, and I says, no, I don't go to therapy. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I do go to therapy. And back then I used to do my show every Thursday in the studio. And I'm like, yeah, every Thursday I go to therapy. And they're like, what, after the show? And I'm like, no, in my show.
It's the show.
It's the show that's my therapy, right? Because you said stuff today too, Brekelle, that really resonates with me, and it's got a little flicker, a little spark going on in my head, going, I gotta look at this a little deeper, right? Because it could be something that I'm missing in my life that you just shared something with me that started a spark to go, I'm going to check into this and see if this is going to help my life get to a better spot. And that's what's cool about doing these shows is to be able to sit with individuals like Todd, even though you had the privilege actually to work with him and be with him on a daily basis. But again, we all need one another. I mean, there is no doubt, no doubt. First, at least my version of it, first we need a higher power, whatever that higher power is for you. And then the people, excuse me, then the people that God puts in front of us to help us along our journey. I shared something with my guest last week. I'm like, God likes to put these little breadcrumbs down for us, and we follow and we picking up all these breadcrumbs, and before we realize it, we've actually made a loaf of bread. You know, and we did, right? We made a loaf of bread by picking up all these crumbs. And I like to go back of what Steve Jobs said when he said, if you connect the dots of your life backwards, you'll see you're exactly where you're supposed to be at this very moment. And that's that loaf of bread. God has our life so well scripted. Now he leaves a lot of it up to us. It's still our choice, right? We can make the wrong choice or we can make the right choice. Good news is if we make the wrong choice, he still gives us an opportunity to make a right choice down the line.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. And I know that Todd has been a big subject in this podcast, but truly like I want to live the exact same way that he does. So all his quotes, you know how he is with his quotes. He's amazing. I take those all the time. A big like breakthrough for me personally. I went into Todd. I think it was maybe our second session ever, and I was maybe like a week clean. And I was so angry about my dad. I was just like, my dad left me, he abandoned me, and that truly was how I felt. And he said, "How did your dad's death happen for you and not to you?" And I was so mad at him. I was just like, who do you think you are? Like, how could my dad dying like be for me? And so I left that night and I went out because I went out on our pickleball court and I was throwing a softball. Softball is a really big part of my life and I was able to like reconnect with it there. I went out and I was throwing a softball at the fence and I was just thinking about what Todd had told me. And that night was the first night that I cried about my dad sober since the day that he passed, over 2 years later. And because I was just really like focusing on what Todd said to me. I went back to our next session and I said, I'm still trying to understand what you're saying. I'm getting it a little bit more, but like I need some more time. Like I need more time to think about this. And I went back the next week. So it took me like a week and a half to 2 weeks to figure this out. And I said, I know that I'm supposed to help somebody else out in my same position that so that they don't have to go through what I did. And Todd says, and I agree with this, our biggest purpose in life is to help another person. And I like life changing one person. It takes one person for that purpose to be filled. And I promise you that will change how you view your day to day. I promise. So I just thought about all that. And
Uh,
that is a really big part of my healing journey was that one day with Todd, just a couple sessions with Todd.
you know, I have this big smile here over on this other side. And the reason why, and you just even said that just came to you. Again, God works in mysterious ways. Um,
Yes.
last weekend, my daughter and I, during our travels, from St. George to Mesquite and Mesquite to St. George, she goes, Dad, there's this podcast that I heard that you really need to listen to. And I'm like, all right. And she goes, have you heard of Jay Shetty before? And I'm like, yeah, I have heard of Jay Shetty. And she goes, well, he did this interview with Madonna. And I'm like, with Madonna? And she goes, yeah. She goes, it's a long podcast. It's about 2 hours. But she goes, Dad, you really need to listen to it. And I'm like, well, send it to me and I'll listen to it Sunday when I'm heading home. And I did. I've listened to this podcast 6 times over and over and over because I'm getting so much from it. Even though a lot of the stuff I've already implemented in my life, I'm still getting a lot of it. And this is what she said in it. And it goes off of what you just shared. She goes, all of us are here to receive, all of us, so we can share.
Yes.
And
Wow.
you nailed it, right? You nailed it. And that's why I got this big grin on my face because it's like, oh my freaking hell. Brekelle says it too, right? And it is so true. Um, Share something real quick for you because I still want you to share whatever it is, and we're coming up close to an hour. But I had a guest on my show about 4 years ago out of Colorado. And she was 30 years clean. Her 30-year-old son was battling a heroin addiction. And she was telling me, she goes, Al, every time the phone rings, I just cringe because I think that's the call I'm going to get that says my son's no longer here. And so she says she just couldn't stand the sound of her phone ringing. And she was in church one day. And after church, she's speaking to one of her friends. And she was telling her friend that story. And her friend goes, she goes, I don't know if this will help, but she goes, there are those that are going through battles that God knows their battles are so strong that they won't be able to overcome them. So he calls them back home. Then there are those that he knows have the strength. And the ones that have the strength, he gives them more strength so they can go out there and be his angels to help other people. And that really resonated with me and stuck with me. So I like to look at the individuals like yourself and other people that I've had on the show. We're God's angels, right? We have been spared for one reason or another to take what we have had happen in our life to share in hopes that we can save some other person's life.
Right.
You look at Todd. You said Todd saved basically saved your life. He got you to look at life in a whole different aspect and he helped you get through your grief. even though we still grieve, right? Like you said, it never goes away. It's always with us. But he helps us look at things differently. You're out there now doing the same thing by sharing your story. I'm doing the same thing by having a friend who I hid my wife's addiction for years, even my own. And then when I opened up, it was like people was coming out of the frickin', my gosh, the woodwork going, hey, can I speak with you in private? And would go off somewhere private. And they're like, I don't know if you knew, but I used to be an alcoholic or a drug addict. It's like, you got to be kidding me. I've known you for 7 years. I had no clue. But again, we give these individuals a safe place to open up, right? They feel safe. And when someone feels safe, we can be vulnerable because we don't feel like we're going to be judged or have their fingers pointed at us. Instead, we get that empathy and we get that love. And that even helps us give more of that right back because really we feel that of ourselves, right? I finally realized I could not give my wife all the love that she deserved because I hadn't even loved myself yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's been one of my biggest joys out of all this in the last 5 years is I can honestly say for the first time in my life, being 62 of age, to say I am finally in love with Al Richards for the first time in my life. I love who I have become and who I've worked so hard to get to this point, which I will not stop. There is no finish line when it comes to bettering yourself. I see that in you, right? You're there and you've got it at such an early age, which is so freaking amazing, Brekelle. Seriously.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, how beautiful is that though? Like how fun and amazing is that this line that this there's no finish line. There might be, but we get to chase that forever. Every
Yeah.
day that. And something that you said about like the self-love thing. Like there you I've never met one person that is clean, that was an addiction that is clean, that has not lit a room up sober. Not
Mm.
one. And so that's the thing is like the self-love that you get with the work, it was showing up for yourself, for showing up for other people. That like it completely changes your aura. People like gravitate towards that. So like even if you're not ready to share it, like people like it's almost like people can understand that you're a safe person to come to. And yeah, just I love everything that you just said because being able to say being able to say that you finally have self-love after going through hell and back is like the most relieving thing to say out loud. And it's an emotional like milestone to get to because some of us like I'm grateful that I learned it at the age that I learned it at. And it goes back to like I think that everything happens for us, not to us, because I went through these dark, dark times throughout my life. But that ultimately led me to going to treatment and meeting Todd and meeting all these people to be able to work on myself. If I didn't meet these people, I wouldn't have been able to work on the things that like I did as intensely as I did. And I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So everything like falls into place exactly how it's supposed to. It doesn't seem like that in the deep dark times, but I promise you it gets better. I promise you. With some time, just keep pushing through every day. That's all it takes. Just push through a little harder every day and it will pay off. It will pay off. It's not going to always be sunshines and rainbows and perfect and great. There's going to be times, but how big of a blessing is it that we get to feel the roller coasters of emotions? Like you said, we're the only creatures on the planet that get to experience all of that.
Yeah.
Get to like not even just like experience it, but get to say it out loud. We get to vote. We get to be vocal about it.
So true. Before I ask you one last question, you know, um, a lot of people don't know this. However, I'm getting it out there. And actually, I just had someone share it with me who I met for the first time having some coffee. We sit down and a friend introduced us and we scheduled time for coffee and sat and met. And she started bringing up buffalo. And as soon as she did, I'm like, oh, I know exactly where this is going. So I don't know if you know this, Brekelle, but buffalo is the only animal on this planet that when a storm is coming, they run towards it instead of away from it.
Really?
Yes, all other animals run away from storm or they go search for shelter, right? The buffalo, if they're out on the plains in Kansas or Missouri, wherever they may be, and a storm comes, a lead buffalo gets the herd together and he leads the entire herd into the storm. Now, the Native Americans studied buffalo a lot, right? They lived off of buffalo. They were grateful and appreciative of the buffalo. The reason why the buffalo do that is because it gets them through the storm quicker. So if you think about it, if you're running away from it, the storm's following you, and then it's following you the whole time you're trying to run away from it. So you're in it. But when you go towards it, you're going through like this. So when I heard that, it really resonated with me. And I did a post on my social media a couple of weeks ago of a tape. I was interviewed on a little podcast and I got all these little clips and I posted it. And I'm actually, my uncle, I have a lot of family members that are photographers that do wildlife. And I called my uncle and I says, hey, do you got a picture of a buffalo running towards a storm? And he goes, I don't know. Let me check. I've got thousands of for photos. And a couple weeks later, he sends it to me and he's got this picture of one buffalo, his head slightly turned, and in the distance you can see the storm and he's running right towards it. He's walking towards it.
Wow.
I'm putting that on my prosthetic leg, on my socket. That's what I'm going to have printed on there so it can remind me that's how I want to live my life, right? As I spoke earlier, life likes to throw shitballs at us. Well, I want to walk straight towards it.
Yep.
When they're coming, instead of, I want to dodge some, of course, I'm going to do everything I can to dodge some, but there are going to be the ones that hit me. I'm going to go through it and I'm going to allow myself to get wet and get cold and get soggy and get nasty because that's what our emotions do to us. However, while I'm taking all that on, I'm going to look for the lesson in those emotions. I'm going to look for the strength that I know that is there and the lesson that I know is there while I'm struggling getting through there because I don't want to stay stuck. I don't want the storm to follow me. I want to get through it as quick as possible. And so, anyway, I like to share that a lot on my show because a lot of people don't realize that the buffalo is the only animal that does that. And when we can look at life that way, to take things head on instead of numbing ourselves or doing our best to run away from it, because it's not going to go away. It's going to stay with us. It's like you know tying a fake snake to a string and then putting that string around your ankle thinking it's real. The more you try running away from it, it's still
Oh,
following you, right? It doesn't matter. And we look so silly, maybe as you picture it, it looks really, really silly. But really, that's what it is. It's not, it will continue to follow us until we can cut the head off of that damn thing or cut that string. That's where our growth starts happening, being vulnerable. And again, looking for that light in the message. So, with that being said, what advice would you give to our audience? I mean, you've talked about healing starts with honesty. I mean, the grief and how really it's a blessing, which it is. You know, gosh, even what we talked about earlier, redemption is always possible. What message do you have for the listeners that you have that's something special?
I don't even have just one thing. I would
Okay.
say it's okay to borrow love until you find it for yourself. I would say how can you expect to be there for somebody else when you can't show up for yourself? You deserve to have the same love given to you that you give to other people. I would say redemption is always possible. And it's okay to accept and acknowledge those hard, sad, dark feelings, but don't stay there too long. I There's so much more that I would say, but I would say like those are the top three things. If I can do it at such a young age, so can you.
Absolutely. And well put. And thank you for sharing those. And times are changing. Times are changing. Um, you just said, Raquel, that if you can do it, anyone can do it at such a young age. And you are so spot on. I picked my youngest granddaughter up. She's 11, and I was bringing her over to my place to take her to a soccer practice because her parents had a lot of stuff going on. And we got talking about things on the way here, and some bad things come up. We was talking about like when bad things happen in life. And here's this 11-year-old little girl who has just got a heart. Whew, I get emotional. A heart in gold of just, she's just so amazing. And she looked at me and she goes, Papa, if we didn't have bad times, life would be boring. And I looked at her and I'm like, what?
How old are you?
That's what I'm thinking in my head. And she goes, Papa, just think how boring life would be if everything was perfect all the time.
Oh my
And I'm
gosh.
like, oh my heavens. I said, so what makes you think that? She goes, Papa, if we don't have bad things happen to us, how do we expect to grow? And I'm like, this is an 11-year-old little girl, and she's seeing it, she's getting it. So I really do feel things are changing, right? You're seeing it at what, you're 22? I think you said you're 22. You're 22 and you're seeing it at such a young age. I'm hearing an 11-year-old little girl talk about it. There is something changing here on this planet and within the universe and the energy. People are starting to open their eyes. And again, thanks to people like yourself, Brekelle, seriously, I get emotional even talking about it because that's how much it means that individuals are vulnerable and are willing to share a story and share their darkest times and times that they're not proud of. And they're not ashamed of anymore, right? Because they know there's nothing to be ashamed of. They went through because that's not who they are today. That's them over here. This is who they are today. And with growth, tomorrow you're a different person than you are today, right? It's constantly we're moving forward. I don't even give a shit if you go a quarter of an inch forward. At least you're going.
Right.
So,
Right.
thank you for sharing everything
Absolutely.
that you have shared and for being willing to come on the show and Todd's show and Todd, you're looked at as a king today, brother, but you're an amazing man. I love you and respect you. You know that. I've told you that to your face. And you know, thank you for all the work that all of you guys are doing. It means a lot.
Can I share a couple of Todd quotes?
Absolutely. Hell
So,
yes.
oh, another thing that I was thinking of real quick. A big thing that I like to say is my past doesn't define me, but it strengthens me. That's a big, big thing that I live by. A couple of the Todd quotes that I tell everybody. The first one is it's a quote. Somebody told it to him one time. It's I tried to find myself I could not see. I tried to find my God eluded me. I tried to find my brother, and I found all three. That's the first one. I love that one. He said that when we did our podcast together. And the second one is one that I live by. I've talked about it a couple times on here today. Everything happens for us and not to us.
Yes.
Those are the biggest. That's advice that I would give also.
Thank you for opening up and sharing that because that's spot on as well. I mean, Todd's been through it, so he knows, right? When he says it, he knows because he's lived it. He's been there, and now you're living it, and you've been there. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Of course, thank you.
Absolutely. Well, guys, there's another amazing show. This one is going to go in one of my favorite brackets. That is for sure. I love the conversation that we had and where all the topics went. I just want to say thank you again to Emergo Academy for all your love and support, guys. Dave and Kenny, I love you guys so much and appreciate you guys. And all our listeners, my gosh, you guys hear me say this at the end of every show. This wouldn't be going on and continue to go on if it wasn't for you and also all our past guests and future guests. Guys, seriously, I'm just so grateful because when December hit, I looked at my January schedule and I think I only had 2 or 3 shows scheduled in January. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get busy. And a lot of my guests also reach out to me and go, "Hey, I have someone that has an amazing story and they're interested in coming on your show." Guys, I'm already booking for June. I am completely booked out all the way until June, and it's because of you guys. So thank you.
Well,
Thank you so much. So we're going to end it as we do, like we do at every end of the show. We're going to say, thank you guys. I love you, appreciate you. And remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.